How many of you drove here today? And I really can't see the audience. I know not everyone raises their hand, but it looks like it's probably 95% if this is a typical Memphis audience. But what about when you go to other cities? Do you take transit in other cities, but not the city where you live? And what makes a great city for destination, whether you're traveling for work or for vacation? Typically, it's places with a lot to see and do in a small area, a lot you can do in one day, walkable places, and those are the kind of places that have great transit. In fact, they're so great for vacation that when Disney designs fictional cities, that's what their cities look like. So great cities have great transit. And these kind of cities are investing in shared mobility options so people like me who don't have a car can get around easily with car share, bike share, nice bike facilities, and ride share. So cities on the move either have great transit already as a backbone or they're working to catch up as fast as they can. So I'll talk a little bit in a moment about what great transit looks like. But first, what are some of the benefits? These kinds of cities are attracting companies and keeping employees that want to live, work, and play in walkable communities that have great transit. These cities are packing their downtowns with high-tech companies and high-wage jobs, and then the kind of businesses and retail that support that. And then with that economic activity, they can have better schools, parks, community centers. And when you've got all this activity in your downtown, you can really no longer afford the real estate for a free parking space for each person coming downtown or the congestion that goes with that. So it's a virtuous cycle. You have more transit, more economic activity, and then you need more transit to get people around in those cities. And this is happening in cities like Chicago, that's got a new Google headquarters. They've got Motorola, Seattle with Amazon, Denver, Boston, Austin, and we're seeing it in Nashville. And in fact, when Amazon recently asked cities to compete to be their next headquarters city, they specifically asked cities to describe their transit amenities and their bicycle amenities, because those are the kind of cities that Amazon and Amazon workers want to be in. And did you know you can bring your dog to work at Amazon? So these are walkable communities, and these are the workplaces of the future. We're seeing it in downtown Memphis as well. We're seeing headquarters move back into downtown Memphis because they know their employees want to walk to lunch, walk after work, and be able to get to great cultural institutions like this one. So that's for cities. What are some of the benefits to households for having transit? We all know that a housing affordability index is about 30% of average household income for housing. In Memphis, we're at about 26%, so we're pretty affordable for housing. But what about transportation costs? Those are 24% of an average Memphis household income. So together, we're paying about 50% for our housing plus our transportation, and that is higher than the national affordability standard of 45%. So with transit, households can bring those costs down to a more affordable standard. So transit can help households save costs, it can help cities attract companies, employees, and tourists. What does transit need to look like to accomplish these goals? So I'm going to thank Jared Walker and Associates for some of the ideas and the slides that I'm about to share. They help companies reimagine their transit systems. So this is a fictional city. You're all going to help me design transit for this city. The dots represent population, whether it's residences or businesses. So we've got 18 buses to put into this city. One way to do it is to put all the buses where there's the most people and jobs and be able to get the most people around. Transit's going to be convenient. You're not going to need a schedule. You're just going to walk out to one of these streets. The bus will probably come every 10 or 15 minutes. And if you miss one, you'll just catch the next one. If you need to go across town, it's going to be a pretty quick transfer because that bus is coming frequently as well because all the buses are on 2 streets. But you can see here that we've left some people behind. There are some parts of town where they're going to have a longer walk to get to these transit routes. They may need to catch a ride or take a bike. So another way to do it, they're going to have longer walks but shorter waits once they get to transit. So another way to do it would be to take all 18 buses and put them across every street in the city. Now we've got transit close to everyone. Everyone's got a chance to have a short walk to transit and have a trip. It's going to be more complicated. You can see that you're going to need a schedule. You only have one bus on your street, so you're going to need to know when it comes. And if you need to get across town, then you really need a schedule to make that transfer. It's going to be inconvenient. It's going to be more complicated. You'll have lower ridership because of those factors. So Memphis today, we really can't have both of these systems with limited resources. In Memphis today, we're at about 60% of the coverage option on the right, and about 40% of our transit resources are going to high ridership, are going in areas where the most people will be able to take it. We've already established that most people drove here today, so you may not know what high-frequency transit feels like or low-frequency transit. You've got your keys, you're ready to leave your house, and maybe something comes up. You take a phone call, or something comes up with your child, or you need to take the dog out. You can leave your house 5 minutes later, jump in your car, and go to your destination. But when you rely on transit and it's low frequency, it's like having a gate at the end of your driveway. You leave your house 2 minutes late, the bus is gone, and you're going to be waiting an hour or two to catch that next bus. And then let's think about the destination of that trip. In a city like this, there's probably easy, convenient parking at your destination, right? So if I go to those same destinations by transit and I give up that free parking space, if I go ask that business to give me a free transit pass for coming there on transit, what are they going to say? They're going to say no. And believe me, I've asked, whether it's a business or a workplace. So we're making it easy and convenient to drive. We're giving incentives for that, and the transit rider is typically on their own. So what are some other factors of great transit for cities? Well, one is high density. So you've got more residences, businesses, destinations, places to go along the route. It just makes sense that more people will take it because it's more useful for everybody. You can also get around more easily without a car in those kind of places because everything is closer together compared to when it's more spread out. Another is having things along a straight line. So you see that top line there, you've got schools, institutions, churches along a straight line. The bus continues on its way, and you walk to the front door. Things are closer together as well. In the second example, you've got the bus going down maybe into a parking lot to a business or down a side street to get there. So not only is it going to take longer for you to get there, imagine that you've gotten on at the first stop and you're going to the end. You're going to be going with the bus to all those destinations. You're going to have lower ridership there. Now, by now, a lot of you are probably thinking, what about smaller vehicles? Can't we reach all these places and provide great coverage if we use smaller vehicles? Well, the main cost of transit is the driver. So if you've got these spread out areas, you can think of that second one like a piece of string. Those are longer destinations. It's going to take the driver longer, and it's going to cost more. What about rideshare? We all take rideshare, right? So we think that's going to be a solution for transit. But maybe you and one other person take a rideshare trip in a half hour. The driver can go pick up someone else, take them to their destination. That's maybe 3 passengers per hour that can use a taxi or rideshare. So a transit vehicle, worst case scenario, is probably taking 5 people on an unproductive route, but more typically it's going to be 30, 40, 50 people an hour taking transit. So it's much more efficient for cities. You'll hear people say Memphis had great transit in the 1960s, and we did. We had more resources in transit, and we also looked like these kinds of cities. Our destinations, this is population again, our residents, our jobs were all closer together. We had shorter trip for the bus driver, more useful trips, more people got around, and we had much higher transit ridership. This is what we look like today. Now we look like that long piece of string where the distances are far apart, the buses are going down side streets, maybe into parking lots. And keep in mind, we have a coverage system. So we haven't designed our system for high ridership. Our goal is to have the bus go to as many of these places as possible to give people the opportunity to take the bus. So it's less convenient, it takes longer, and we do have lower ridership with the design that we have today. So working with Memphis 3.0, the comprehensive plan, we've designed 4 maps of what Memphis transit could look like. This is our existing system. This is a coverage system with 60% of our resources to coverage. We took the same resources and designed a high ridership system so that there's going to be great transit in communities that are a little denser. You can see, just like our fictional city, we've left some areas behind. Some parts of town won't have transit because we just can't do it all. So we took more resources and designed 2 new maps. One is Coverage Plus, which is a high coverage system, and then you've got Ridership Plus with that high ridership network and still covering all the areas that we cover today. So I'd invite you all to take a closer look at these maps. We have a survey, voice your opinion, at memphis3.0.com/transit. So if cities on the move are investing in transit and mobility options for people like me to get around, what do we want Memphis to look like 30 years from today? This is your opportunity to participate and have your voice be heard. Thank you.